It's time for the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast, a podcast so good it doesn't need a name. So without any further ado, here's your host, JD. Take it away, Johnny.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 40 of the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast, recorded on April 13th, 2014. I'm your host, JD, aka Gaddick, and in today's episode, we'll be talking about the patch 2.7 release, which came out on Tuesday, to relatively minor bugs or problems that we normally expect to big patches, so good for them on that. And we will be discussing the community cantina questions that were asked at the Boston, right? PAX East is in Boston, the Boston Cantina. So we'll be talking about those questions, what I think about the responses that we got there. I want to apologize for not having an episode last week. I had a rather nasty case of strep throat, which kind of made me sound like a dying bantha. Didn't think that would be very good for recording, so I decided to take the week off. But I'm back. We have stuff to talk about. A lot of big stuff, so that's great. All this an idea fresh off my wall of crazy. Let's force sleep right in.
Red 2, I've got a topic coming in hot, requesting clearance to engage.
Lock S-foils in attack positions. You are cleared to discuss.
So I guess we should start off with the big news, and that is the release of patch 2.7, which dropped on Tuesday. And there was a lot of stuff in this patch, a lot of stuff for everyone. There was the new Hutball map for you PvPers out there. There was the new space map, Danan, for the space players, and there was the release of Nightmare mode operations. And okay, while this might not be for everyone, I mean, if you are a casual raider or you are a hardcore arena player, there might not be anything for you here. The end of Season 1 also happened, so I've seen some Rancor mounts, and damn do they look cool. I'm a little jealous that I never got in there and got my 1500 ranking for that. And I really haven't seen a ridiculous amount of them, which I think some people were worried about, because of the fact that the 1500 ranking kind of seemed low after they told everyone the rewards and everyone was queuing. So I think that actually worked out well. There have been a lot of players claiming that other players that may have gamed the system, you know, fixed matches and whatnot, still got the rewards, despite the fact that Bioware said that they would do something about that. But it doesn't seem like anything happened there. Which, you know, like I said last time I was on, that the risk of falsely accusing someone far outweighs the benefit that they gain from not giving some rewards. Yeah, I mean, it does suck that someone didn't work as hard to get their rating or get their reward, but I'd rather that happen than someone who did work hard gets falsely picked up by some kind of mass banning or mass not giving a reward system that isn't really tailored to the player. You know, I'll talk about in the next segment, in the Community Cantina segment, but there was a question asked to that effect, and they were saying that each case is judged on an individual basis, which I think is the right way to do it, which will end up causing less and less players to get banned, because you have to actually go through and look at the players' match history and their matches, things like that. So some people may be upset about that. I don't think it's such a big deal. Maybe as we go forward, the system will kind of work itself out and they'll figure out a better way to do it, and maybe we'll get more of those cheaters and more of those match fixers out of the system. That would be nice. The number one thing, I mean, if you're upset about this, the number one thing I could suggest you to do is, you know, report it when you see it. That's really the best you can do, and hopefully Bioware takes it from there. The new Hutball map, though, is a very cool one. I've played it a couple times now on the live server, and it's really awesome, except for the one problem I have with it is it's so goddamn bright. I have to put on sunglasses when I play that map. Everything is just yellow and purple. It's like so in your face and bright that it is kind of blinding and a little annoying. And I've also had some terrible performance issues in this Hutball map. I know SWTOR doesn't necessarily run like the best game in the world. It's no Crisis, that's for sure. But it just chugs and chugs and chugs my frame rate being in there, and the brightness doesn't help. It's tough, but the map is really, really fun. And it does kind of remind me of the Warzone suggestion I put in the Warzone suggestion thread last time about a 3-tiered King of the Hill map. It's kind of like that. It is 3 tiers, with the goal line being at the top, which is cool. There's lots of different ways to get from one level to another, with the grappling hooks, with the ramps. I like the fact that the middle, it kind of behooves everyone to get the ball to the middle because you can score on both sides from there. It's not like the hutball map is now, where the goal lines are spread out in such a way that if you're going in one direction, you're not helping the other team. In this one, it kind of is strategically placed where you could be trying to score one way, but incidentally helping the other team, which is cool, and I think that works really well. I think the map is still getting players to learn it. I've seen a lot of players running around to the bottom with the ball, being like, where do I go, where do I go? A lot of people have to learn to pass the ball up a little better, make sure they're looking above themselves. Like if you have the ball on the outskirts of the bottom layer, you can pass the ball up to the ramp that leads up to the goal line. So I think a lot of players need to look out for that. That's definitely a key tip for winning in that hutball map. The first match I actually did was I scored that way, and that was the first goal. It was 1-0. I scored that way like a minute into the match. I felt so good, and then we lost 6-1. So didn't work out too well, but I still had fun. I like the map a lot. I like where they went with hutball. Hutball is a great asset for SWTOR. It is something that no other game does, really. And it's something that's unique and should be used in more unique ways. That's why, well, I don't know if I ever went over my what I wanted to do for my... Alright, tangent here. We're going to talk about the Warzone suggestion that I made. And my Warzone idea is a 3-tiered King of the Hill, as I said. So you have a bottom tier, you have a middle tier that's kind of like a ring, almost like the... I have a map that I'll put in the show notes so you can kind of check it out. So you have like a ring, middle tier, and then you have, and that's cut out in the middle, and then you have 2 platforms on the top with ramps leading up to them. And the top platforms are your scoring platforms for King of the Hill. So you score points by getting players in there, and that ticks over time. So you continue to score points the more players you have in there. Now, the spin on that, and where I thought about this, is the bottom floor has a hutball, and holding the hutball gives your team, say, double points while you are in possession of the hutball. So it gives players a reason to not just, just keep slamming their faces into each other in the platforms up top. And yes, you could do that and try and score that way, but you're going to end up getting more points if you are able to hold on to the hutball. So you have to kind of balance between getting the hutball and getting players into the goal line. If you only try and get the hutball, you're going to be losing anyway, because even if you're getting double points, the other team still has more people in the scoring zone. But if you have the hutball and you're both equally represented in the scoring zone, then it's going to work out beneficially for your team. So that's like the basic gist of my idea. I'll put a link to the full write-up that I did on that idea in the show notes, so you can check that out if you would like to hear more. But to get back on topic, I think that the hutball map is cool. I like it. They did a good job with it. And I realized that I left something out talking about what was coming in patch 2.7. There's also the Assault on Tython and Assault on Korriban flashpoints, which I've discussed already. I don't like them, but you can go back and listen to my previous podcasts or the videos on my YouTube channel, and where I describe in detail what I don't like about them. And then finally, the thing I probably know most about is the Dread Fortress Nightmare mode. I haven't done the Danon space thing yet. I've heard it's good, but like I said, I haven't done it. I've been trying to get some space pops this weekend, but I think people stopped doing space because I guess it's just not a very good value proposition during double XP weekends. That's what I've noticed the past 2 double XP weekends. Is people kind of stopped doing space. The queues were really long, so it wasn't worth worrying about it. But yeah, Nightmare Dread Fortress is a thing. Is it a great thing? There are great elements to it, I believe. I think there are some things that are done very well. Let's go boss by boss, I guess. Right now we have cleared Nephra. We one-shotted Nephra and then have been bashing our faces against Draxus for a while. He's good. I think the Draxus fight is good. The Nephra fight, I don't have a problem with it. It is very easy. I think most capable groups one-shotted it, or can one-shot it, will one-shot it when they get around to doing it. It's really not that bad. If you want to get into Nightmare mode, Nefer is a great place to start. If you have cleared all of hard mode, you can do Nefer no problem. Don't be too afraid of that. It's really a gear check, a DPS check, to make sure that your group is ready for Nightmare, and I think that's a good way to handle the first boss of a Nightmare mode. Gets players in, lets them, maybe get some of the gear. You do have to earn it. I mean, you need to have a good amount of DPS to get in there and do it, so it's not like it's free epic loot. But it's an easy boss, and that's fine. Some bosses can be easy. Not every boss should be or can be the highest difficulty ever. Like, that's just not reasonable. And I think a good difficulty progression is the hallmark of a good instance. And it doesn't matter what difficulty mode it is, the progression just starts higher on a harder difficulty, in my opinion. So, Nefer's fine. No problems there. The Draxus fight is very interesting. I like some of the things that they've done there. They've kind of changed things up. I think that's a very good difficulty for a second boss. I think the world first tier of guilds had no problem with Draxus, but I think a lot of the, Nightmare mode groups, I think, could have problems with Draxus, like ours. I think Draxus is tuned very well. I think it has some interesting changes to the mechanics of the hard mode fight. It's not just more damage for the sake of more damage. And it's good. I like the Draxus fight a lot. I think they did a good job designing that fight and upping it to the Nightmare difficulty. Grobthok, haven't done it yet. I've seen videos on all of these things. They've all been cleared at this point. The Grobthok, I think, is a downer. I think that is an example of a poorly done boss in Nightmare mode. The mechanics really don't change all that much. The adds to have a shield that you can walk through the fire. Okay, that's fine. You could kind of do that already, even though it wasn't mandatory. It was doable. The stuff hits harder, more health, more damage. This is a Nightmare mode boss fight done poorly, especially in the middle of the instance. Like I said, I think that a good difficulty progression is important. I think each fight should progressively get harder and harder and harder. I think Draxus is a good second boss difficulty. And I would hope that each boss after that would get slightly more difficult. And looking at Grobthok, it looks like it's basically the same fight as Grobthok in hard mode with a couple bells and whistles that aren't that bad. So coming off of Draxus and then seeing that was a little bit of a downer for me. But then you have Corruptor Zero, also not too different. There are some interesting things going on there. It doesn't seem that difficult to do once you know what you have to do. It just seems like you have to do the strategy right. You can't do the fight. You can't cheese the fight basically like you do in hard mode. Hard mode, the strat where everyone stacks from the boss is kind of like cheesing the fight. And it kind of prevents that, makes you spread out. It makes you handle the adds a little bit differently because they're unseeable. They have boss immunity, which kind of sucks, but you gotta handle it. I think that fight is okay, not great. I still think Draxus is a better design fight, a tight fight, better tuned fight, I believe, from seeing it. I just think that the Draxus Nightmare mode is more interesting than the Corruptor Zero one. Not saying Corruptor Zero is bad. I think it's fine for what it is. Maybe for being the penultimate boss, it is a little too easy. And we could talk about that. A lot of groups, day one cleared 4 of 5. And while Brontes did put up some good resistance, I think they did a pretty good job with Brontes, which I'll talk about in a second. But overall, I think that they could have tuned up the difficulty of Grobthok and Corruptor Zero. But overall, I think they could have tuned up the difficulty of Grobthok and Corruptor Zero a little bit. And finally, Brontes, which actually took over a day to complete. Wasn't cleared day one. I believe it was cleared on Wednesday by Hatred, maybe? I forget who did it first. No, it was 7 something. It was a number and then the guild was 7 Stuck, which I believe is a Euro guild. Who world first did it? It was done on the 9th, which was Wednesday. So it took him a day to do. A little disappointing it didn't hold out longer. After it didn't get cleared night 1, I was hoping that it maybe would go a week or so before it was cleared, which I think is a reasonable expectation, but it was no dread guards, that's for sure. It was the last boss, which is good, I guess. Some people would want the last boss to be the hardest boss. I agree with that. I think that the last boss should be the hardest boss, and in this case it was. Congratulations to those guilds that actually completed it. We'll be working towards that for sure. Hopefully I see it soon. I think from watching it, I think it's a well-designed fight. I think it's a good final boss. I mean, could it have been tuned up a little bit more? Maybe. Some people think that you should have to earn some gear in the current instance before you should be able to finish off that instance. I kind of agree with that. I think there is some merit to that, saying, okay, you're gonna need, you know, basically a full set of the Dread Touch gear in order to beat Brontes. I mean, maybe you could do it in lower gear, but we're tuning this fight around this gear, and if you do it in lower gear, it would be exceptional. So I think that is a valid way to go about it. I think they should try that. Maybe they should try that for the Dreadmasters fight in Dread Palace, or, you know, a couple of the fights in Dread Palace. Maybe have that one require you to get some gear for the later bosses from the earlier bosses. The problem with that is, you know, you have the luck-based factor, which kind of sucks for certain groups. You know, if there are really strong DPS checks and you actually end up getting a bunch of the DPS drops in your first time, that is kind of unfair to the other groups, you know, with the world first community, which I could see as a possible downside to that. But I think it's an interesting way to go about it. I think that also helps with the curving out of the bosses. If you have later bosses tuned around more and more Dread Touch gear, that kind of naturally gives you that progression of difficulty from the first boss to the last. Overall, I think Nightmare Dread Fortress was a very good instance from what I've seen. It's been enjoyable bashing my head against the wall on Draxus, trying to refine our strats, work on what works for us. And I think now we have it down. Hopefully we'll get the kill on Draxus tonight. Rating in a couple hours, so get that done, and we'll be on to the next. I've got to say this is no explosive conflict, even though I think that this instance in practice is very similar to the explosive conflict. You have the first boss, which is kind of easy, then you have a really tough second boss, and then you have a really easy boss, and then you have a really, really tough final boss. I think that this fight, I think Brontes measures up favorably against Kephis. I think they're both very cool fights in their own right. I know people love the Kephis fight, but I really like this Brontes fight. So that being said, I'm not sure which I would like the best. Explosive conflict still gets the edge in my mind, but not by much. So that's what patch 2.7 has brought to you. Some interesting cool stuff that I like. I think patch 2.7 is a good one. And hopefully that trend continues in further patches. Alright, that'll do it for this segment. We're going to take a break here, and we will come back with the community cantina questions. So stick around for that. So for those of you who were lucky enough to be in and around Boston this weekend, you were probably at the SWTOR Community Cantina. And if you weren't, what were you doing? They do these every month. I know we've talked about these pretty much every time they come out, because we get some good questions, good answers from from different people. A lot of the time it's the same questions, but good questions nonetheless, and I'll just go through a couple here. I'm taking the questions as transcribed by Heather at Heather_PLS, and you can go to her blog at prettylittlesith.com, so go check that out. The question that I really want to focus on here is the first one that she transcribes, and these are not verbatim transcriptions. As always, take anything that you don't hear the original audio from with a grain of salt, because you don't know how things were implied, things like that. So, that being said, the question that I want to talk about is that the question is here. I'm kind of talking in circles here, and I apologize for that. Question is, I know PvP ranked is only for subscribers, but why? Why not make a purchasable pass for preferred or free-to-play players like there are for operations? Eric Musker responded, when we talk about subscriber benefits, ranked PvP is one of the big perks. If we wanted to make the extra money, we would just do the pass, but ranked PvP makes being a subscriber special, which is important. And for this answer, if this is actually what was said, it just seems like they are completely missing the point of why people are demanding this and why people ask this. Most of the people that are asking for this are subscribers, and they fall into two camps usually. Usually it's subscribers who A, want to get their free-to-play friends into ranked with them, so they can do ranked with their friends, who don't necessarily have to be subscribers. I know a lot of people that are subscribers that have gotten their friends to play through free-to-play. So those players want to play with their friends. And how do you do that? Well, through the passes. You can buy them for your friends. If I say I want to do operations with my friend who's free-to-play, I can buy them a pass on the GTN or buy them with cartel coins, either way. And I can get them into an operation with me for a week. That's great. That's fun for both of us. That's an incentive for both players. I don't necessarily care that I'm a subscriber and he's not. We're doing something that's fun for both of us, and we're making the experience for both of us better. If you want to make the lives of a subscriber better, then I think this is something that you should do. You should allow the option for players who are not subscribed to get what they want. And then the other justification, or the reason why I see people asking for this, is the fact that they want PvP queues to pop faster, especially in ranked. And how do you get ranked PvP queues popping faster? Get more players doing ranked. How do you get more players doing ranked? You get free-to-play and preferred players to do ranked. And this is a quality of life issue for all players, subscribers especially. You're hindering subscribers by not letting non-subscribers do ranked. This is a bad thing. This isn't a subscriber benefit. This is a subscriber detriment that you can't play with free-to-play players or preferred players. It's making the game experience worse for them, and I don't understand why they would do that. And this answer makes me feel like they don't understand why people are asking for it, which is an even worse thing in my opinion. So it's not great. I mean, hopefully they see the error of their ways eventually. I mean, this has been asked several times now, and we've seen several responses like this, and at some point it has to get into their heads that, you know what, people actually want this, subscribers included want this, so we should give the subscribers what they want, because that would be a subscriber benefit. And the one negative that I brought up a few times with this is the fact that, you know, if you're getting free-to-play and preferred players in your solo rank queues, I mean, not saying that all free-to-play or preferred players are bad, but they are put at a disadvantage in several ways. I mean, they do have limited crew skills, so maybe they don't have stims. They have limited money, so they can't afford things like stims or things like grenades, things that are really necessary for your ranked PvP. They have the equipment authorizations that they have to buy, so if you're going into ranked with just blues on and you're worrying about bolster, then, I mean, that could be an issue for all players and be a bad thing for everyone. So they need to work those things out first, and I feel like those are the real reasons that they're not doing this, is they don't want to have to deal with those, because they'd have to end up giving the equipment authorization thing is absolutely ridiculous that that's still in game. Get that out of there. I mean, at this point, I mean, I don't have the numbers. I am not the money person at BioWare, and they are very not forthright with those numbers because they can't. But there are just certain things that need to go. The quick bar slot authorization, that's gotta go. The equipment authorization, that's gotta go. There are things at this point that there are other revenue streams, and making the free-to-play experience better is good for everyone. And if you make the free-to-play experience better, we may end up with more free-to-play players and preferred players sticking around, maybe becoming subscribers. And you make that preferred free-to-play experience better, you'll have more players doing ranked PvP, you'll have more players doing operations, you'll have a bigger, better community, more people doing Galactic Starfighter, more people doing World PvP, or role-playing, whatever. They really should work on making that experience better at this point. I think it's time to reevaluate how they've set up the free-to-play system. I really think that's an important thing for BioWare to address this year, is to look at yourself, not just say, okay, status quo is good, because status quo is always good. No, just take a look at the decisions you've made. We're 2 years into the free-to-play experiment, and it's still an experiment. Things should be tweaked constantly, and I think that it's time for BioWare to do that. So that's the main question that I really want to talk about here from the Community Cantina, is that the ranked PvP for non-subscribers. So I think that's something that should do, and I think it's indicative of a larger problem with SWTOR at this point. The other question that I would like to talk about is this one. How are you identifying PvP cheaters when taking away ranked rewards? And Eric's answer is relatively long here from the transcription, but it basically boils down to the fact that they look at a number of different factors, like if you always queue with the same person, if you always, queue at the same time, maybe you wind up playing against the same people, so is that necessarily cheating? He's basically saying it's a tough thing that is done on an individual basis, and it sounds like it requires an actual person to sit there and say, okay, let's look at this, do I think this is actually cheating? And I think this is a reason why so many players ended up getting their rewards that other players feel like they didn't earn or don't deserve, that they cheated to get them. And I think that the fact that it's done on a personal basis with someone actually looking at the docket and being like, okay, do I feel like this is cheating, is a much safer way to do it. I'm sure they could put in an automated system that just ran through and said, like, if you meet this criteria, this one and this one, you're obviously cheating, so get out. I think that this is a better way to do it, a safer way to do it, because it's much easier and much safer, I think, to let 10 cheaters get away with it than to punish wrongly one cheater. I mean, that's with the justice system too. You say you'd rather let 10 guilty people go free than convict one innocent person. So going with that's standard. I think that this is a good idea, a good thing. Maybe they'll be able to identify more patterns that people are using. I don't know. I've never cheated. I have never looked into cheating. I don't know how to do it. Maybe there is something that people are using some specific time, or they're using some forum or something to coordinate this cheating. And if they could figure that out and automate that, that would be a good thing. But I think Season 2, they are looking into improving the system. So hopefully they'll be able to do that and get more cheaters, catch them, and get them out of the game. So that would be great. Maybe they'll drop the ban hammer. That would be really good. I'm always a fan of a good ban hammer. That's really all I have to talk about the Community Cantina. As always, the Community Cantina events are insanely entertaining, insanely fun. You get to talk to a lot of other SWTOR players, a lot of other people, the devs, and the community team. It's a really cool event. If you live anywhere near one, I highly suggest you go check it out. I really should have went to Boston. I was regretting it this weekend that I didn't go to Boston for the Cantina and for PAX. So if you have a chance, go. You should definitely do it. And with that, I think it's time for the Wall of Crazy.
What? That's impossible even for a computer. It's not impossible. I used to bullseye womp rats in my T16 back home. They're not much bigger than 2 meters.
This week's Wall of Crazy topic was inspired by the hourly sales that happened last week. I believe it was 2 weekends ago. It was on Friday. They just started doing hourly sales in the cartel market, which is really cool, other than the fact that many of us were at work while they were happening, so that forced a lot of us to miss out on some awesome deals that we would have liked. This leads me to believe that they had to do it during a workday so that someone could be there. They probably have to manually update the cartel market in some form or fashion in order to make sure it's done right. I don't know if they've ever done like a new fresh sale on a weekend. I don't believe they have. Maybe they have. If they have, go ahead and let me know that I'm wrong that they've done this. But it's probably to prevent some kind of Office Space style error where they miss a decimal point and all of a sudden everything in the cartel market is free and it just completely tanks the economy. They don't want to do that, so it would make sense that they have to have a person there just to monitor it and make sure everything is okay. The Wall of Crazy topic was, what is the next big thing for the cartel market? You know, they have dyes, they have mounts, they have all sorts of things. They come up with a new thing every so often, and it gets hot for a little while. I know the black and white dyes are like that, and certain other things. It looks like they're going the route of Steam sales, like I've suggested many times in the past that they should go a route like that. So what is the next big thing with the cartel market? And I got 2 suggestions that I absolutely love and I think would sell gangbusters on the cartel market. So Spencer at The Dirty Spoons on Twitter says, it's hard for me because I'm really satisfied with the game. That's okay, you can be satisfied with the game and still come up with things that you'd still like to see. But I would pay cartel coins for custom spawn points. Now that is a really cool idea. Could you imagine if you were able to, while you're doing like your really hard Datacron run on McKeb, like the +10 endurance I think it is, on McKeb, and you can just drop a custom spawn point, so if you fall, well, I'll just spawn back here, and that's fine. I don't know how they would do this. I think he is suggesting a consumable type item, because he says he would pay 30 cartel coins for 2 hours, which I think would be an interesting way to do it. I think they could get away with doing that, where you just drop a spawn point, all of a sudden you can fast travel there, and it's just a one-time use type thing. Or if they made it a little bit more money, or probably a lot of bit more money, where you can just set it and forget it, and maybe it has a cooldown, maybe a 24-hour cooldown or something to prevent some kind of unforeseen circumstances. I could see this being annoying in World PvP, but let's be honest, World PvP doesn't happen. It's not happening, and if they ever do it in the future, they can design around this and not allow this item to be used in that time. There's frequency jammers or something crazy. I don't know, but that's really cool, and I would definitely pay for something like that just to get around a little faster, you know, movement speed, mounts, all that kind of thing, all those kind of things. I'm the worst with grammar. If you've been with the show for 40 episodes and haven't realized I am terrible with grammar, both written and spoken, you should probably have your hearing checked, because there's probably something wrong with your ears. And then the other suggestion that I got comes from the one, the only Madmar at SWTOR Family. He's the man. If you're not following at SWTOR Family, what are you doing? So he tweeted at me and he said, screenshots converted into paintings or holopics for your house/stronghold. And then he followed up with the email where he says, here is how it would work in the cartel market tie-in. You could buy a token from the cartel market. That token would either be a picture, holo statue, or even a statue made of whatever Star Wars lore material. So Durasteel or something like that. On buying this token, you will be sent a code or link to a website. Here you can submit your screenshot and have tools for your own personal touches. Possibilities are endless. Take a screenshot of a heroic moment, items, and add your personal touch, or just statues of yourself. This is the Wall of Crazy. Why not an achievement for making statues of yourself? You are so vain, you think this achievement's about you. And Medmar doesn't know this, but I love this song because I sing it to my girlfriend all the time. But anyway, I haven't done a Wall of Crazy in a while, but I love that part of the show. It's on Madmar. So thank you very much, Madmar. I think this is an incredibly cool idea. This is the Wall of Crazy, so you've gone big, and being able to edit your own screenshot that you upload, and I mean, that could possibly be from anything. If you're just uploading to a website, it could be a picture of yourself that you put on your wall. I don't think that's possible for so many different reasons. You'd end up with so many penises or pictures of people that you don't really want in game. So I think that it would have to be some kind of restriction to screenshots that you take in game. I'm sure people would game that system too. But I think it would be incredibly cool if you could really customize your house with a screenshot that you've personally taken by yourself. So, Madmar, thank you very much for your suggestion. Thank you everyone who had suggestions for this week's topic. It was a fun one, and I really love these two ideas. BioWare, if you want to make a lot of money, make the custom spawn points and make sure that the galactic strongholds have screenshot pictures, statues, etc. That would be really cool, and I'm sure it would make a lot of money. And that'll about do it for this week's show. I picked a winner for the Astromech code last week, Jason Wright at color_light. You won the Astromech for telling me your favorite Warzone. Make sure you follow me, guys, so I can direct message you your Astromech codes if you do win, on Twitter at GT. For next week, we're going to do it a little bit differently. If you want to win an Astromech code, you might have to work slightly harder this time. What you have to do is you have to actually email me something. It could be anything, a question, a comment, a suggestion for a topic you'd like to see covered in the show. It just can't be give me an Astromech code or something like that. It has to have some kind of meat to it. Tell me something you'd like to see in the show, how I can make the show better, or just general hate mail is fine too. As long as you put some thought into it, I will enter it, and I'll randomly pick one of the people to get on it. And if you give me a suggestion for the show, and I really like it and I happen to use it, maybe I'll give you a code too. So we'll make that work for everyone. So go ahead and put some thought into that and send me an email. You can get me at gaddockteague@gaddockgaming.com, or you can also get me my other email, which I'm trying to phase out, but you can still use it, is gaddockteague.crr@gmail.com. So, as always, if you'd like to contact me, send your questions, comments, concerns to gaddockteague@gaddockgaming.com, as I just said, or you can tweet them to @gteague on Twitter. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes to get your weekly podcast updates, and if you're new to the game and thinking of resubscribing, I provided my refer a friend link in the show notes, so if you'd like a little added incentive to come back, feel free to use it. You can also check out my website, gaddockgaming.com, where I post the podcast, videos, and any other gaming general musings. I've actually discussed with a friend of mine who may come on to do a sporadic column as well. If you are interested in writing a general gaming column, I may be able to work with you and maybe get your stuff on the site too. So if that's something that interests you, feel free to email me and let me know what you want to do. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast. This is JD, signing off.